General Establishment of Syrian Railways is the national railway operator for the state of Syria, subordinate to the Ministry of Transportation. It was established in 1956 and is headquartered in Aleppo. Syria's rail infrastructure has been severely compromised as a result of the ongoing civil conflict in the country. History: the first railway in Syria opened when the country was part of the Ottoman Empire, with the 1,050 mm gauge line from Damascus to the port city of Beirut in present-day Lebanon opened in 1895. The famous Hejaz Railway opened in 1908 between Damascus and Medina in present-day Saudi Arabia also used 1,050 mm gauge. Railways after this point were built to 1,435 mm standard gauge, including the Baghdad Railway. The French wanted an extension of the standard gauge railway to connect with the Palestine railways and so agreed the building of a branch line to Tripoli, Lebanon, operated by Société Ottomane du Chemin de Fer d'Armes Hammer et Prolongements, also known as DHP. The Baghdad Railway had progressed as far as Aleppo by 1912, with the branch to Tripoli complete by the start of World War I, and onwards to Nusaybin by October 1918. The Turks, who sided with Germany and the Central Powers, decided to recover the infrastructure south of Aleppo to the Lebanon in 1917. The Baghdad Railway created opportunity and problems for both sides, being unfinished but running just south of the then-defined Syrian-Turkish border. Post-war, the border was redrawn, and the railway was now north of the border. DHP reinstated the Tripoli line by 1921. From 1922 to the Baghdad Railway was worked in succession by two French companies, who were liquidated in 1933 when the border was again redrawn, placing the Baghdad Railway section again in Syrian control. Lines Syrian de Baghdad took over operations, who are a subsidiary of DHP. The next big developments in Syrian railways were due to the political maneuvering leading up to and during World War II. As Turkey had sided with Germany in World War I, the Allies were concerned with poor transport in the area, and their ability to bring force on the Turks. Having built railways extensions in both the eastern and western deserts of Egypt, they initially operated services via the Hejaz Railway, but were frustrated by the need to transload goods due to the gauge break. They surveyed a route from Haifa to Rayuk in 1941, but decided there were too many construction difficulties. The standard gauge line from Beirut to Haifa was eventually built by Commonwealth military engineers from South Africa and Oceania during World War II, in parts applied by a 1,050 mm gauge railway to access materials. Eventually Turkey remained neutral and refused the Allies access to the jointly controlled sections of the Baghdad Railway. Although by then the Allies had driven the Palestine Railway through to Al-Akari, Homs, Hama and onward to connect with the Baghdad Railway at Aleppo. Locomotives servicing the Allied war effort included the British R.A. Riddle's designed WD Austerity 2100, four of which post-war went into Syrian service, designed CFS Class 150.6. In 1956, all railways in Syria were nationalized, and reorganized as CF Syrian from 1 January 1965. Expanded with monetary and industrial assistance from the USSR. The agreement covered the joint industrial development of the country, covering the development of the ports of Tartus and Latakia. They were initially connected by rail to Al-Akari and Aleppo in 1968 and 1975 respectively, an irrigation project on the Euphrates, resulting in the construction of the Tabqa Dam, drove the connection of Aleppo to Al-Thora, Arakad Diri Zor, reaching the old Baghdad Baghdad Railway at Al-Kamishli in 1976. Current system. Network today, all 1,435 mm network and trains are operated by CFS, using all diesel-electric powered traction. The main routes are Damascus, Homs, Hama, Aleppo, Maidan Nikbus, Aleppo, Latakia, Tartus, Al-Akari, Homs, Palmyra. Freight only opened for phosphates traffic, destined for the port of Tartus in 1980. Line runs from the oil fields of Al-Kamishli in the north to the port of Latakia, Al-Akari, Aleppo, Deir ez-Zor, Al-Kamishli. Extension from Homs southwards to Damascus was opened in 1983. 80 km Tartus-Latakia line in 1992. Al-Kamishli, El Yarubia, Damascus, Sheikh Miskin, Dera under construction to replace section of Hejaz Railway. Sheikh Miskin, Suwaida, Palmyra, Deir ez-Zor, Abu Kamal. Prior to the civil war there was a proposal for a connection with Iraq between Day Arizona Zor and Al-Qaim Trackage, total 2,750 km, standard gauge 2,423 km, 1,435 mm gauge. Narrow gauge 327 km, 1,050 mm gauge. Chemins de Fer Syriens. Operations. The network is designed wholly around diesel-electric traction. For operational purposes, CFS is divided into three regions: Central, Eastern and Northern. At the end of 2004, CFS employed around 12,400 staff. The system has a low-level capacity, with top speed usually limited. A 30 km section of the Damascus-Aleppo line was designed for speeds reaching 120 km per hour, but most of the track has a limit of 110 km per hour. Most tracks of the CFS are limited to 80 km per hour. Operational train speed is also limited by a lack of interlocked signaling, with most of the system operating by informal signaling. The Damascus Al-Hejaz railway station, which lies in the city center, is no longer operational, and the railway connections with other cities depart from the suburban station of Kadam. The result is that most passenger traffic has moved to air-conditioned coaches, and freight traffic dominates the operational trackage. The 2005 introduction of South Korean-built DMUs, where drivers were trained using a simulator on the Damascus-Aleppo route, and the high-traffic Aleppo-Latakia route where intermediate stations have bypassed, resulted in higher usage and occupancy levels. The only international connection is with Turkey. The link with Iraq, severed in the war of 2003, was restored for a time but closed again. There was a plan to reopen it in June 2009. In 2008 it was proposed to open a joint rolling stock factory with Turkish State Railways at Aleppo. The only remaining section of narrow gauge line, running from a point on the outskirts of Damascus into Jordan, is operated by Jordan Hejaz Railways. Rolling stock. Current motive power. The motive power in 2007 was noted as passenger vehicles. The railway possessed passenger carriages. Almost all OSSHD were obtained mainly from the former Deutsche Reichsbahn of German Democratic Republic, the newest of which were obtained from Kiel Freight Romain of Romania and Polish State Railways. The stock of 483 carriages includes 19 restaurant, 45 sleepers and 33 baggage vans. In 2001, Iranian company Wagon Cars refurbished some stock which is still in use, while the remaining unused stock lie rotting in sidings. Freight wagons, goods wagons. Freight trains are organized into block workings, covering shipments of oil, natural gas, phosphates, grain, cement, containers, construction materials and other transports. Most of 4,319 vehicles were built between 1960 to 1975, with the most modern stock the grain wagons imported from Iran in the early 1990s. Approximate figures for stock: 1294 heavy flat wagons, 846 open wagons, 818 oil tankers, 762 covered wagons, 597 grain wagons, 323 phosphate wagons, 178 sliding wall wagons, 146 self-unloading wagons, 53 flat wagons, 50 natural gas tankers, 45 cement wagons, 20 water tankers, 19 tippers. Retired future. In 2003, the Syrian government planned to invest €9 billion in the system, with €12 billion annually to be spent in succeeding years. The longer-term development of the network up to 2020 was the subject of studies undertaken with the help of the Japanese consultancy JICA. Proposals included the construction of new lines for speeds of up to 250 km per hour to Iraq, Lebanon, Jordan and Turkey. Restructuring of CFS was foreseen, with the state assuming responsibility for infrastructure and railway operations placed in the hands of separate independent business units. In October 2010, there were plans to set up a joint center for rail studies, with Ferrovie dello Stato, and plans to build a rail link between Damascus and Jordan were temporarily revived, subject to funding. Railway links with adjacent countries. On the 22nd of April 2005, Syria ratified the Agreement on International Railways in the Arab Mashriq, which provided for the implementation of a variety of north-south and east-west links between the states of the region, including the restoration of direct rail links between Syria, Lebanon and Iraq. Iraq, severed 2003, at New Arabia, 1,435 mm, due to recommence operations, June 2009. Iraq, new link de Arizona, Zor and Al-Qaim. Israel, defunct, 1,050 mm. Jordan, yes, 1,050 mm gauge. In 2005, work commenced to build a 1,435 mm line. Lebanon, defunct, closed mid-1970s. Turkey, yes, at Maidan Nikbis, Islahiya and Amp Arabak Kotay, Kobanbian Amp Karmashli, Nusaybin and Amp Nusaybin, Karkamis 1,435 mm.